Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Step Up to the Mic. I'm so excited for you listening in. There's so many conversations we're going to have week in, week out with so many different people, and I love that. I love that about this podcast. But I want to talk a little bit about how this podcast came together and how this first episode kind of formed. The first episode is called The Power of Conversation. And I tell you what, I came in to do Ezekiel Project just to have a hangout with Rick Arredondo. And he put me behind a mic with headphones on, and we had a very impromptu conversation about conversation. And he pretty much said, "What's on your heart?" And I kind of just went, "Here we go." But we know what's fascinating? This conversation happened in February of 2020. February of 2020. And so this whole time, there's been a building of brand. There's been a building of the vision of Step Up to the Mic. But in the midst of that, what has happened? This conversation happened before COVID-19. This conversation happened before the racism with George Floyd and the protests that were going on and the rioting. Because let me tell you what I'm hearing now as I'm about to launch. I'm hearing we need to have this conversation. We need to have these conversations. We need to talk about these hard things. And let me tell you what, God placed something on Rick and I's heart in February before all this went down. You know, I don't know what you believe about prophecy, and I guess maybe I'm still trying to figure that out, but there is something prophetic about this first episode. And let me tell you what, as we kind of spill out our hearts, at the very end, you're going to hear the vision. You're going to hear what is coming together at the very end. And you're going to hear something launch that's deep in my heart, and I am so excited to walk this journey with you guys. Thank you for listening in. Subscribe to my podcast. Listen, share it, let people know. Ladies and gents, this is Step Up to the Mic podcast, episode 1. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, this is Rick Arredondo and Correy Scally, and we're here at the Ezekiel Project in New Philadelphia, and we're just talking and just kind of figure out, hey, what's God doing in our lives? And I know, Correy and I have got to know each other over the last few years, and so how you doing, Correy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, and this is pretty awesome. This is pretty impromptu, if I said that word correctly. And so, I feel like my life is kind of like a podcast. I'm always having conversations that I feel like that could just be on a podcast. And so I'm excited. I'm good.
That's good, man. And we kind of started this conversation before we went live is that, hey, we want to reach people in a very different way. I know Corey's got a big heart. We all run into people looking for something, and we always feel like it's right under their nose. I mean, Jesus is right there. And somehow, some way, they just kind of complicate things.
Yeah. So what do you think? Because there's so many different directions that we could talk about. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the pressing thing you want to talk about today?
Well, I believe there's a revival happening, and it's happening very organically. I just don't think people have actually picked up the pulse as much as I'm looking for signs, and I'm seeing a lot of good things.
Right. Okay? When you say revival, what do you mean?
What I mean is that people are kind of getting the spirit back. They're kind of going back to the basics of the relationship with Jesus and not so much all the other stuff, the entertainment value.
Right on.
I'll get the next book and it'll fix my life, because I've been there, right? Yeah. I mean,
sometimes I'm still there. Sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I want that next book. But
yeah. And I think also, we both, I think, feel it's a relational.
Yeah.
First.
Yes.
Get to know a person, and they get to know you, and then you can share your story. And to me, that's just very genuine. So I see a lot of people maybe taking that bold step of saying, "Hey, I have a testimony. I don't need to hear somebody else's. I've got my own."
Right.
And they're now maybe having the courage to maybe say it.
Do you think it's? Oh, there's so many things I want to say. Do you think that we are noticing this relational revival, kind of narrowing it down a little bit, filtering it in a little bit more, because we are coming to the ends of ourselves knowing that devices cannot give us intimacy, and that our iPhones and our iWatches and all the cool little gadgets at the end of the day don't produce relationship?
I think we've made a substitution for it without even knowing the consequences. But I also feel like Well, that's why we're doing this podcast, because we're going to try to reach those people maybe
Right
on those same devices, right?
Right on.
But I do think that texting is not a relationship.
Yeah. Texting is not even talking. It's more just my thoughts
Exactly.
that I'm typing, which is really dangerous to think about. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're having a conversation, you're not really having a conversation. You're just having a thought back and forth communication. It's just like there's no tone. There's hardly any context. There's not all kinds of things that come with verbal communication. So I just, texting alone is it can be a good thing when it gets, to some degree. I texted you today. Yeah, I'm running late. But texting, I don't know if it's always best for conversation, for the heart, for the soul to connect. I don't think that's good. So, yeah.
And I think that just as a society, we've kind of also, church is viewed kind of similarly. It's not, and I love, there's a lot of aspects about church I love. And, the more we're into the word, the better, the teaching, the application. And I also see people are hungry to get back maybe to just the Bible, and kind of the peripheral stuff is good, but shouldn't replace the word.
Right on. And there's so many things I have so many opinions about the church, but at the same time, I guess this is where I kind of want to steer a little bit, but I don't know if we truly believe that church happens at our dinner table as much as it happens on Sunday morning in a congregation. And I wonder almost if we're starting to realize that, if people are starting to see that, and like we're putting a lot of resources, energy, and hype into an hour for Sunday morning. Either whether you go to a big church and there's like 3 of those hours, or you go to a small church and there's 1 of those hours, and then we call that church. And I just don't know if we are realizing that actually church actually starts probably when we leave the service and we shut down the building and turn the lights off. And knowing that that's actually more of a place to come and gather and celebrate and hear the word and enjoy each other and love each other and sing and all these great things. But I think people are also realizing, well, there's got to be way more than just a Sunday morning for this many hours and this many things. And so I'm just wondering if we would look at our dinner tables and our living rooms more as a sanctuary. Sometimes as church, we would be able to probably reach people on more of an intimate relational level.
Couldn't agree with you more. And it's funny, my wife and I were in Ephesians, and I'm looking at so those who know me really well, they know I've probably had some challenges with church and how we perform, or we need to work together. And what was interesting was in Ephesians, I think it's 5, where it talks about, you got to give grace to people in church. They're not perfect people. Right. And so I think what we do is we talk a lot about it at the table, what we don't like about it. And so all these filters, to your point, just deteriorate the relationships around us, family, friends. And I think you and I even talked about it a while back, is, just breaking bread with your friends as church. Bringing them over, saying grace, praying over each other, what your needs, kind of thing. Right. And I think that's where the revival is kind of the movement it's going more towards.
Yes.
I don't think it's an organized movement. I think people are just maybe finally getting it. I don't know. What are you seeing?
I think I'm seeing some Sunday mornings not working. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, honestly, this is what I'm seeing. Honestly, if I had to be so bold, the millennial tone within sometimes the media or certain, what do I want to say? Certain conversations can be negative. I've noticed that when if I said the word millennial, most people have a negative outlook of that word more than they do a positive. There's a negative trigger. There's a negative feeling. There's these are people that are privileged that don't understand hard work. And there's probably some truth to a lot of that because of how the world has changed over the 50 years. But I'm wondering almost what millennials are actually, and now Gen Z are looking at our communities and looking at our churches and going, anybody just tired of doing the same thing and it not working? Anyone just tired of just putting the same work, same effort in, and also then going, we don't have any results here. Like, something's got to change. Something's got to be different. And so, yeah, there is this like call out nation coming out of millennials, and there's a lot, man. There is a lot of baggage that comes out of my generation and below. But I do think what I'm loving about us millennials and loving about Gen Z is that we're this young, vibrant people that are not trying to think of something new, but just kind of looking at the norm, going, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, does anybody know the purpose of what we're doing? And like, why are we spending so much money and resources and time in something that at the end of the day is not changing anyone? And I think that's part of also the millennial culture is they kind of can see through the BS of things. And so because of that, there's a great strength in that. Now, again, there's a ton of baggage and that comes with that. I'm not saying millennials and Gen Zs are the rock stars of the culture, because at the end of the day, the 80-year-old man in his neighborhood has everything to offer to that 15-year-old guy or woman that's like that. I guess I don't want to say that millennials and Gen Z are greater than. I'm just saying that sometimes I don't think generationally we think we're in it together. There's power when you actually see a vibrant church generationally come together. So I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles a little bit, but yeah, I think kind of to land my point is I think a lot of people right now are just seeing something that doesn't work and are kind of going, what are we going to do about that?
I agree, Corey. And if I just look at who is going to church, I see a missing component. But I will say, kind of going back to your comment, having worked with millennials and actually beginning to have relationships with them, their value system is probably better than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are questioning.
Yeah.
They're just not going to go into a corporate world because I'm going to get the 30-year watch and I'm going to get the pension.
Right.
They don't care about that
right.
as much as they do quality of life.
Right.
And I think they want their generation all to do well.
Yeah.
So if one of them isn't doing well, I think they would, step up. My generation would probably run over them and not even look back. And I'm just saying that because it was the treadmill effect, and everybody, you get on the treadmill, you go run.
Right.
The millennials are standing at the treadmill going, well, you look really unhealthy, like you're going to die. Why would I get on the treadmill? And I think the way I see church now, and there's a lot of criticism, but what I would like to see with the podcast, because I invited you in here to talk about the power of conversation, is I would love to have a couple of those folks right here talking about, like, well, tell me, what was it like the first time you walked into the church? And then go from how they being fed and do they feel like they fit in? And I'm hearing if you're not married, it's tough.
Yeah.
Like people go like, well, we don't have a singles group or once they get out of high school and they're not going to I don't know how you term them anymore. It's not like you go to catechism, which is what I was used to. You don't go to kids' church. You're now ready to step into the big church. Are they really like welcome there, or are they still feeling isolated?
Man, I'm going to throw out a really bold statement.
Please, because this is what I want.
Because I'm just winding up.
This is Corey Scally saying,
I'm winding up here.
Okay.
I think a lot of our cultural issues right now, whether it's in racism, whether it's in a lot of these things we're talking. There's so many things I want to say. I just think, can we all just stop being afraid of each other? That's what I want to say. Can we just look at someone in the eyes and talk to them, and more than hand them a bulletin, more than just give them a high five, more than say, hey, welcome here. No, can we go beyond that and look them in the eyes and go, hey, who are you? What's your name? Where do you come from? How are you doing? Hey, this is my friend over here. You should meet this person. And I think that's a big reason why there's a huge big issue in a lot of areas. Now, I'm not saying that solves all. I'm not saying that is the capstone. But I'm saying that like we just live in fear. We live in this relational fear that, oh, I'm too anxious, I'm too depressed, or I'm too this and this and this. And I'm not, again, I feel conditioned that I always have to like high five the other side and go, oh, I'm not saying this. But what I guess I'm saying is like, we don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live with fear of getting to know people. Do I think boundaries are good? Absolutely. Do I think taking time, having wisdom? Absolutely. But like, I think we blow it way out of proportion. I think when someone walks to the church, go up to them and go, "Hey, I'm Corey. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Who are you? How can I know you? Do you want a cup of coffee? Can I go get that coffee for you? Do you? I don't know. And then when they come back next week, hey Jeff, oh, you remember my name? Yes, I did. Because you know what I mean. And so it's just like I think these kind of things, if they just start happening, we would probably see a little bit more excitement to be there.
Well, people, I think, once because we've advanced so far in such a short period of time. I mean, this country hasn't been around that long,
right?
But in rural communities, they needed a reason to go somewhere. So it was land, or there was work, right? So let's just say in rural Ohio, it was mining. So what happened is people moved there. So then they built the first market. Then they put the first church. But everybody knew somebody brought something to the table that the town needed.
Yeah.
So there was this kind of natural relationship because you brought people with you when you got on the wagon train. I'm going back way, way, way back. But my point is, they all needed to kind of weave together to create this community. And so what's happened over time is we just forgot how to be community.
But I don't. Am I allowed to disagree with you on this podcast?
Oh, absolutely, because that's the beauty of what I think is the magic here.
Okay,
is because we all have this perspective, and I'm 63, and you're what, maybe
34.
34.
Right on.
So it's almost like 29 years, right? So, but with that comes like these perspectives, this prism.
Good.
So no, absolutely.
So maybe it's not. I don't know if we've forgot how to do community because on Snapchat people are doing community really well. On Instagram, people are doing community really well. Facebook is all about community groups right now. You see these commercials of, I have a puppy, this kind of puppy, and then they end up in a group of people that all have the same puppy, and they're doing community. I don't think we've forgotten how to do community well. I just don't think we want to have Jesus communities.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I think. I just don't think we want to talk about Jesus with our community. I think we want to talk about everything else, talk about all our other interests, do all our other things that make us feel well. But at the end of the day, we don't want to share that intimacy with someone else, because Jesus comes intimacy, and we're not talking about that word. What we've done, and this is, again, I'm going to swing for the fences here again. I don't know how I feel about this sentence that says it's not about religion, it's all about relationship. And I'm like, okay, like I get the context of what someone's saying, as I've heard that in the past 2 decades of my Christian walk in the evangelical church, and just because the religion is Christianity, whether we like to say that or not. Actually, James, and I'm in a study of James right now, and it actually says this is what true religion is, and it talks about taking care of the orphans and the widows, and so it says the word religion in the Bible. So I'm like, I don't know why that word has got such a bad rap lately, but to stay on point though, it's just like, can we just go a step further and call it intimacy? We're just scared of being intimate with people, and we think intimacy's like, obviously there's a certain intimacy that comes with your spouses, but like there's an intimacy that you and I share, Rick, when we get together every single time we talk, and we pray together, we talk together, we share opinions, so I don't think we've forgotten how to communicate. I just don't think we want to do the work to have intimate conversations.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
No,
bounce that back?
I do agree. I think one of those things is I'm kind of processing it.
Okay.
Because, we have redefined.
I guess I didn't process it before I said it. So
no, you did.
Maybe that's what you're teaching me right now, is the process before I talk.
No, I think we've kind of redefined it. And it's now been substituted with these things. But to your point, like when you and I have coffee together, people are coming up to us, and we're even though we're together, we're
Right.
still making contact with other people.
Right.
I think mainly because I think that's probably what keeps us both wanting to do life.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I just think we're made more than just the tip of the iceberg with our friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think we're going to go anywhere if we just keep being surface level people. Yeah. Yeah. There's always anxiety in me that wants to explain myself, because I even get nervous on this podcast and think, what if someone's thinking that I'm thinking this different, and I don't, you know what I mean? And so I almost like need to like take my own medicine and not be living in fear, even as I'm talking about these bold things that I talk about honestly a lot with other people, and I'm careful because I don't want to just set fires, and then walk away and be like, well, deal with that, I don't want to do that. But these are just relational things that I've experienced, and I'm only 34. I get that. I've got a whole nother life to live here, but God has blessed me to put me in certain kinds of environments of ministry even in the past decade, and I've just seen these things happen. I've just seen people just I don't know. I got to pause for a second. I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, while you pause, I just, so again, going back to what I think we're trying to create here is people coming and understanding that, hey, you don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
Recognize maybe that there's an opportunity that a new relationship, and I'm sure most people, if they sat down and just put a T-bar with good relationships, bad relationships, I mean, I'm sure one side of the equation would be a lot heavier than the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I also, there's no probably Mister here that Correy and I are both Francis Chan fans.
Heck yeah.
Because he's kind of...
I hope he's listening.
Me too. That would be great. I hope to get a sponsorship at some point. But this the reality of that, when your senior leaders are questioning, like, is this the way we should go? And, he talks about, going to China and Africa and finding there's real relationships there.
Yeah.
And that is one of the big missing pieces of the puzzle here. So, but I think, a conversation about kind of dismantling components of this where we could actually dive down, get into scripture and just talking about like what Jesus created and there's this aura about him, but he was very practical. I mean, he had relationships. He just didn't go from a boat to another boat and call people. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's so much missing in the in-between that there were relationships. He lived, and he walked and he talked and he had coffee or food or,
So here's a bold statement. Here's a bold question for you.
We're going to have to start counting bold statements. I love it because,
I'm just wrapped up in boldness.
I know, I can tell. There's this aura about you already. But my point is, isn't it cool that we can just talk bold?
Yeah.
And I don't think this conversation would have happened necessarily. Right now, this minute.
Right on.
So that's bold. So go ahead.
So I guess I'm going to stop setting myself up and just be Corey. And so, because one of Francis Chan's most popular books, but wasn't as popular, was Forgotten God. And Crazy Love comes out, right? And it's just such a big hit, and we all have opinions about the church and all this, and everything. But then Forgotten God comes out, and it's like, wasn't my favorite, like you kind of hear that, but it's all Holy Spirit driven, right? And he's got some bold things to say in there, and he's got some really honest things. And so going back to this revival, what we're talking about relationally, do you think actually, Rick, that some of these revivals or some of these relational settings are actually not Spirit-led? And they're schedule-led, and they're agenda-led, and the reason I asked that question, I'm going to tell you a quick story.
Well, why don't you tell us what the difference is?
Yeah, and so
schedule-led to you is?
So I guess I'll speak out of an experience of mine. Okay. So 2005, I was 18, 19, I can't really remember it. And I went to Mexico for a whole year. and got to be a part of this group, and it was some of the best, most incredible times and miserable times at the same time, because miserable in the sense of God just humbling me left, right, which was ultimately a good thing. And so I think that year-long trip wrecked me long term, like in a great way. But there was times at night. See, I don't know if I'm speaking for all Latino culture, but the Latino church there in Mexico, we would have church at night, and it would start at dark 30. It would start when everyone just kind of showed up. And so we'd put the band together, we'd put the music together and everything, we'd start practicing, and then everyone kind of out of their village would just kind of come, and then we'd have church, and then we'd start. And then there would be these same components of worship and sermon and prayer and these things, and an altar call or things like that. But there was no, like, we have to end at this time. It was kind of, we feel the Spirit's leading us to end now, and so we're going to leave. And so, yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, and there was some of the most powerful worship times, prayer times of my life happened in those small churches of 50 people, of these villages that had nothing. And they would just show up happy, excited, and we would just, and I, to be honest with you, I don't even know what the words were always being said because I didn't know Spanish that well. So but I felt the presence of God there because it was Spirit led. And so what was really hard, and it's still hard all these years later, is we come back into America, and it's just like, we got to be done with church so people can watch football. We can only preach that 30 minutes now. It used to be an hour. Like, there used to be an hour long sermon, but now it's like, 30 minutes. And so it's just like, man, can again, I am not against a nice schedule so people can get home for lunch and have family together around the dinner table, because I don't want to contradict myself in the sense of like having church around the dinner table. But I'm saying sometimes I just wonder if we're setting up the agenda, we're setting up the schedule, and at the same time what we're not doing then is going, this is what you want, God? Is this what you want? Like, do you want me just to go another 10, 15 minutes? Do you just want us to not go into the last song again after service and just spend some time praying for each other? God, do you want me just to stop everyone and go, you know what? I had a sermon for you today, but I think what we need to do right now as a church, we just need to get in small groups and pray. And then we're going to sing together.
I love
That's
that.
going to be church today. And it's just like, we don't want to do that. Why? Is that because that's too youth groupy-ish? Or is that because it's too
I've seen it happen recently where they just kind of said, hey, I had this whole, this sermon, and they never opened it. And they just went into, we're just going to pray over people today.
That's awesome.
I had people just say, it's really what we needed at that moment, right? I think probably the other thing was, well, we're not going to do this every week, right? I mean, because people are used to a schedule. I mean, without my schedule, of course, at this stage of my life, I don't have like meeting after meeting after meeting. But I think most people, when they have kids and things have to be done, but then they've also put God on the schedule. So, what time are you waking up? It's 5:00, and I'm doing an hour in the morning. Well, that's an hour. Are you really doing an hour?
Right.
So we're trying to fit everything in.
And it's almost like when I say I'm going to spend time an hour, I'm like, I really don't. You know what I mean? And so I'm not against the schedule. It's just more, I guess, are we open to the Spirit leading interruptions? And this happened last night. I was locking up the ministry center off the wall, literally about to walk out. It's been a long day. I was there from at 8 a.m. and I'm walking out the door at like 7. So long day. And I get a on the front door, and I'm going, and I think it's a student, but it's not. It's some guy who's needs money to get to his home, and he just got off work. And to be totally honest with you, I wanted to say no. I could have easily said, sorry, man, I don't have any money. And I didn't have any cash. And so what happened is he said, this is my name, and can be totally real with you, seemed a little sketch. Didn't really seem honest with me. And so I was in a position where I was the only one there, and I didn't know what to do, and so I called a buddy who was having a group, and his guys came down and helped, and we ended up just giving him money. That's because at the end of the day, he found a ride some else way, but I got a chance to talk with him. But and he said, is there anything, at the very end though, he said, is there anything I can do for you guys? And I said, you can let us pray for you. And we just had time praying for him, and I don't know if I'm ever going to see that guy again. I don't know if he's going to come again and change his name. and give me a different story. But that was an interruption that at the end of the day was frustrating. It was annoying. It was, oh, really. But at the end of the day, it was like, you know what? That was awesome to give my time, my money over to this guy. And I pray that he's doing well now, you know? And so are we okay with that? Are we okay with those interruptions that come along in our schedule, even when we're just not wanting it?
Yeah, I mean, our schedule is precious. It's ours.
It is precious.
We claim it for ourselves, and yeah, I can totally relate to that. And you know, even I think I'm seeing a lot of churches now look at a weekday service or just a worship night, and it's things that we want to do in the Ezekiel Project. I mean, we want to do these worship events where they're just kind of very spontaneous, whoever shows up, kind of thing. So I'm hoping more for that, but yeah, I think we're all looking for something a little different. And I feel like I have the stability of a church that should empower me to do more. And that's kind of my MO right now is what can I do outside of that hour and a half?
So here's a question for you, though, is because 64 years, right?
Mm-hmm. 63 actually.
63.
Yeah,
so
don't rush it. I'll be 64.
Give you a year.
I'm like on Sunday, so I just want to make
Sunday.
sure. Yeah.
Well, this is the moment we all take a break and we say happy birthday to Rick.
Yeah, there you go.
We're sponsored by Happy Cupcake.
Yeah, there you go.
We go. 63 years, 64 years. What you like? I'm a 34-year-old here. Gonna be a 34 in a few weeks, but like, you've got 30 more years on me, man. Like, tell me. Like, this is where I think maybe the millennials are lacking. The millennials are lacking going, this guy's got 30 more years on me. He's probably got something more to say than I do. Like, even though I could be in the fresh, but he's got wisdom of 64 years on this earth. So maybe I need to pipe down and listen to him. You know what I mean? And so my question to you then is, you tell me what you've seen work, what you've not seen work, and how you think our generation, my generation, can be an effective change for good.
Well, I think one of the things that I had to learn, and it wasn't until all that recently, is I had to listen more. Because we all want to be heard.
Yeah.
We all want the mic.
Yeah. Yes.
And then we're just talking over each other, and it's about who can talk faster, who can have the most words, and, you know, at what point will the applause break out because we did something really great. And a lot of times, to me, it's when you sit down with someone and you don't have a schedule and you're just kind of communing, you know, what are you doing, how are you doing, kind of thing, and you're able to share, you know, something personal about yourself. I think I'm finding that people respond better when they don't feel like you're just trying to convince them you're something else. So you've got to be able to be vulnerable.
I like that.
Okay, so vulnerability, you know, we all define our own vulnerability, how far we want to go with it. What I love about you is you wear it on your chest. I do too. My wife says you just kind of do people know, Rick, when you're happy or you're not?
Yeah, I can't help it actually. That's
there you go. It is, and it's how we're wired. And I think for us, it's we want the relationships to be meaningful. You know, there's only so many hours in a day, and you know how many people are God going to be put in front of you. What I start to realize now is when I chase something, is it from God or is it me? And so now he's telling me, I will put people in front of you. You don't have to chase anything, because then you got to decide, is it from God or is it from me? So I'm finding that I'm just more open to kind of keeping my eyes open and looking around and talking with people. And I don't want to be the 90-year-old man. I want to be the guy in the beanie that they don't know if I'm 50 or 150, but I want to be approachable. And I think that's one of the things that is a challenge when people don't look in the eye anymore.
Right.
You know, and sometimes I feel like if I buy somebody a coffee, just because it starts a conversation. So I think it's just kind of, I have to take the first step, right? And I think with those that I communicate most with now is there's already that coffee that happened months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. So I'm finding that it has to be a two-way conversation, and I have to ask open-ended questions to get them to engage with me. And sometimes they don't want to, and I got to be okay with, this isn't the time, right? But the hardest part for me is just how do you be attentive and have advice, but not feel like you're telling them what to do.
Yeah. Have you learned that yet? Because I don't know how to do that. Sometimes I'm like,
yeah, it's tone.
That's really
sometimes
good.
it's my tone. Like I know for sure what's good for you. I mean, that can be like, dude, that's the wrong thing to do. But I find myself having to think more intentionally about what I'm going to say because of just the habit of speaking fast and, it's the texting with your mouth.
It
right?
is. You're right. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, but I think the worst thing is, and I had this opportunity of speaking in front of like 700 Buckeye students, and I'm just talking to them. There's no conversation. I'm missing, like, I want them to say, this guy is nuts, or some acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, enough of the being on stage and talking. I want real back and forth conversation, because I want to know, like, what are you thinking, man? Like if we're going to make this town, this city, what it can be, I think it has to be spirit led. I think the spirit has to be here. And so how do we engage people back into getting on board with just investing of their time, their resources, energy? Let that be the catalyst for what's going to happen, instead of, well, Corey's got that handled and Rick's got this other thing handled, and I'll keep an eye out. No, how can we engage people differently? And I think every time we have an opportunity, it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Long way to answer the question.
No, that's good.
I think a lot of it's just got to be adept in recognizing, am I communicating? Are we connecting? And if not, then just move on.
That's a great question. That's a great internal question I've never thought about. Am I just communicating, or am I connecting? I'm just pondering that right now as you're
So one of the things that I do when I'm presenting something, I look for the skeptic in the room. I go, oh, it's you. And I'm gonna talk to them, and when I get them nodding, then I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Well, think about that. That's a room full of people. And I think sometimes we're just, they're talking, and the person's talking to you, and you're going, you're shaking your head yes, but really you're going, no, I'm not on board with that. And I think that's, we can't be real. We can't disagree. Right?
I think we can. I just think we are afraid. That's
exactly right. So you come away not even knowing who the person is, because they just agreed with you the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Or you agreed with them through the whole conversation. So I think that's a societal issue that's come from, we don't want to be shot down, embarrassed, shamed.
But I like what you said earlier about just asking questions, because I don't think we do that. I don't think we do that enough, of asking questions to people and just putting that question out, and just I'm a question asker. I love asking questions. I think Jesus was the ultimate question asker. If you see the Gospels, you see that even God, even Genesis 3, they're sinning. The first thing he says is, "Where are you?" Right, yeah. And so he's offering questions. Even Satan, as the serpent, says to Eve, and he asks a question. And so, like, the Bible's filled with all kinds of questions that are happening in this theological narrative between our relationship between God and man. And so, but then why aren't we doing that in our own communities, in our relationships? I mean, have you ever seen people go out to eat in a group, and there's maybe six to eight of them there sitting at a table having a good time, but the way that we communicate to each other is we're talking about ourselves. We're just like, it's fascinating. I'm telling you, I dare you to do this. Next time you're sitting in a group of people, just observe and see see if someone asks another person across the table a question. Or if they just go, oh yeah, this happened in my life. And the other person goes, oh, this happened in my life. And we're constantly just bouncing this ball around of talking about ourselves. But what we're not doing is going, tell me about that. What is it about that? And I don't know if we've lost this inquisitiveness in our relationships. I don't know if we just think we just know that person. I don't know if we're just getting lazy. I don't know what these things are, but intimacy takes work, and some of that work takes investigation, and some of that investigation starts with questions.
Yeah, so this is a warning for if you see Correy and I in craft, we're probably going to crash your table and start asking you a bunch of questions. But yeah, I just think, I'm a people watcher.
Yeah.
Spending as much time in airports and stuff, I just come away with all kinds of, I can tell you stories. But yeah, I catch myself, like how many times, I wish somebody could just say, Correy and Rick used I and me this many times in this conversation.
That would not feel good at all.
Like everybody have a scorecard, and mark down like, oh, well, hey, you're doing better, Correy and Rick. It's only 20 today.
Only 20.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is if we could only listen to ourselves, which is funny because we're doing that on this podcast. We're hearing ourselves talk, and it's intimidating a little bit.
It is,
but it's also tells you how people are hearing us.
Yeah.
So I think so maybe it is all about relationships, and maybe that's the root to this revival that we're talking about.
And I think, but here's the thing I'm seeing about revival though. This is my last swing for the fences here.
Okay.
I don't know if we're truly going to see the full potential of our revival until we start having conversations and building relationships with people that are different than us and not in the same circles as us. There's such a disconnect right now between the church and the secular world, and we think some cultures, church cultures have bought into a lie that if I dress the way that they want me to look, they will then come to my church. At least that's the narrative I see. I'm not saying that that's their heart, but if we create an environment for them to come, they'll find out, oh, Jesus is really cool. I'm not against being in those places that have a fresh feel. But at the end of the day, if we're not reaching those who are the drug dealers, different races, people that just are completely different than us, all we're going to do is just filter through the same quote-unquote revival, and we're never going to reach our full potential.
Right.
Like, and just like here in New Philly, 90% of everybody's white, right? Or well, either white or there's like a Guatemalan culture here. I so deeply desire to learn Spanish this summer, so I can interact with my neighbors who I see that are Guatemalan. So I know how to help them, know how to pray for them, so they can come to a prayer night, and then I can pray with them in Spanish. Talk about like a life goal that I would be able to learn Spanish, them come to a prayer night or go to one of their prayers and have a fellowship with them speaking Spanish. You want to talk about, I would feel like in that moment I just made a difference.
I think you just swung for the fences on that one.
And so, you know what I deeply desire? I deeply desire just different nationality. Black people come and live in New Philly. More Asian culture. I just don't think, as long as we just stay in our own circles and be safe, nothing's going to change. The most convicting thing that Francis Chan has said to me through YouTube, because I don't know him personally, you've met him, but the most convicting thing he has said to me over a decade of teaching research instinct is that I'm moving to Hong Kong. That's the most convicting thing he has said to me through all his research and teachings and everything, because he is going into the belly of the beast. Because Hong Kong right now, not a great place to be right now. A lot of political things going on, a lot of rioting, and the fact that he's just that's where he's being led, that's where he wants to go, that's where he wants to do minute. And I'm just thinking to myself, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing? Like, not that I don't, I know I can be exceptionally hard on myself, because God does have me in a discipleship ministry, and it's a life on life ministry, and there's a lot, and I'm a self-supported missionary, and there's a lot of, but I'm just thinking, man, there's so many people in my community that are different than me, that are in broken worlds that I don't know. Everybody I talk to is a Christian. Every single person. And I'm just thinking to myself, there's got to be a change. There's got to be a change in me. I don't know if I have to go to the bar one night and have wings next to people.
Jesus and Bruce.
Yeah. I don't know if I have to learn Spanish in order to know my Guatemalan neighbors. I don't know if I have to do this or this or this, but I'm just stepping up to the plate myself and saying, this is God, use me. This is what I want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. So going back to Francis, the most convicting thing he said that resonated with me was, we're all fishing off the same pier.
Yes.
So we got all these lines in the water and nothing's being pulled out, by the way. I mean, I'm getting the perception that what few fish are there, we're trying to get.
Yeah.
It's not like we're all pulling out our fair share, right? So when he said he wanted to go somewhere where there was less fishermen, and I just said, my gosh, I just see what's around us.
Right.
And I'm going, I mean, we just lost. And I'm hoping, he's going to go through his own process of coming back here refreshed with a whole different perspective. And he's going to write the next greatest book that's going to lead to the next greatest. I would love that. But part of me was like, wow, we suck because he's gone. I mean, like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I have a dear friend, pastor in Sacramento, and he says, hey, I want you to go to Africa with me. I'm going, dude, my Africa's right here. I don't need to go anywhere.
Right.
I mean, just look out my door. I mean, I see need and there's things I want to do. But I think that's the other thing, Correy, is that, we've got to get back that mojo, that going from it's scary to now we're just going to go.
Right.
And maybe it's just taking one house at a time in our neighborhood. It would be a good start. Yeah. Because I remember Francis, he was in front of this big church and he said, quite honestly, guys, I don't know if any of you are saved. I would have just put my head down going, oh my God, what am I saved? I mean, think about it. Like, what is, what's his definition? It's because, again, are you doing the things that...
Are you a hearer and doer of the word?
Exactly.
Gosh, James is messing me up right now.
I know.
James is just messing. And I'm only in chapter 2. I'm doing deep study. I'm only in chapter 2.
Well, here's what so it's funny. We're like 45 minutes into this podcast, which I think is great. But that's the other thing is I hope that Correy and Rick are going to do the next one, just getting into James.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it. And I hope that those listening, because I know Corey's got a lot of following, and I'm counting on it that we're going to get this out there, that they're going to want to kind of plug in.
Yeah.
And the other thing with this platform, Correy, is I want people to be around us.
Yeah.
And jumping on the mic saying,
I got something.
I got something.
Right.
Or sit in the back and listen, and then maybe the next time they're going to step up to the mic.
Right on.
I feel like we're gonna connect with a lot of people a lot.
Maybe that could be the name of the podcast. Just step up to the mic.
Step up to them. I love that. There you go. I see. So he hit a grand slam without even knowing it. But
blindfolded,
yeah. But my point is, I hope people listening, and Correy, I hope you can close this. I know you'll close this right, in that we are relational people, and we're looking at other ways to connect with people, and this is as good as anything until iPhones and phones are gone,
right.
Because then we're back, having real conversations. But we hope that this information and getting to know Correy in my heart is going to encourage you to kind of step back into the mix and start connecting with people again. And I'm just, happy that Correy was here, and
this has been awesome.
We're going to kick this thing off.
I feel like I'm going to walk out of here just like my hands in the air, just fired up. I feel like but I also feel convicted because I'm like, I got to take my own medicine. I can't just sit here and say all these things and then not follow through. You know what I mean? And so,
I hear you, man.
And so there's got to be credibility on the other side of these opinions and passionate, bold statements. And so I think, I guess the last thing comes to my mind, we're relational people because the Trinity is relational with each other. I love that we emphasize Jesus, But there are two other people inside that Trinity, the Holy Spirit and the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And they have had community before they even created. And you see in Genesis 1, they're talking to each other.
Right.
Who should we create in our image? Who's our?
Mm-hmm.
The Trinity.
Right.
You know, and so they've been doing it before we've been doing it. So why don't we just take a book out of their, or a chapter out of their book and go, oh, we'll just follow your lead. We'll just have good community, good intimate community, just the way you're doing it, you know, and Holy Spirit mess us up to do that. Jesus, we're going to worship you, and Father, and we thank you for your relationship. And so so many things I want to say, but Rick, thank you for letting me be a part of this. This has been awesome.
Well, I think this is the beginning of Rick and Correy step up to the mic, and this was very much impromptu.
It was.
Trust me. If you were only part of this conversation leading up to this, you would know. But hey, thanks for listening, and God bless you guys.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
All right.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Step Up to the Mic podcast. Feel free to reach out to me for any questions or feedback. Hope to hear from you soon.